My name is Elias Warren, and what I'm about to tell you sounds impossible. If I wasn't living inside this nightmare myself, I'd say it belonged in the pages of a supernatural thriller. I buried my son 21 years ago. That lost car to hollow space inside me, so deep I never escaped it. Every Sunday, for more than 2 decades, I visited his grave in our hometown of Cedar Ridge, Pennsylvania. Rain, snow, blistering heat. It didn't matter. I would stand under the old maple tree, beside the tombstone, engraved with his name, Noah James Warren. Born February 9th, 1987. Died October 18, 2004. Age 17. My ex-wife, Claire, stopped coming after the first year. She said the cemetery only made the grief heavier. She remarried, had another child, learned to smile again. I didn't. I couldn't. My world remained frozen in that autumn when my boy didn't come home. Noah died in a car crash. At least, that's what the police told me. A delivery van ran a red light in town. They said he died instantly. I remember identifying his body through a hospital sheet. His skin was cold. His lips were pale. I touched him and felt the world collapse. For 21 years, I held on to his phone number in my contacts. I never deleted it. I couldn't. Each month, I even paid the small fee to keep that number active on my account, even though it had long been disconnected. A small, foolish ritual to feel closer to a world that no longer existed. Then 1 month ago, at 2:43 a.m., my phone lit up in the dark. The screen displayed a name I hadn't seen illuminated in over 2 decades. Noah calling. For a moment, my heart simply stopped. I thought it had to be a hallucination brought on by grief and insomnia, but the ringtone continued. My hands trembled as I stared at the glowing screen. It didn't make sense. His number was dead. He was dead, yet it rang again. I finally answered, my voice barely a breath. Hello? A pause. Soft breathing. Then, Dad, where am I? My son's voice. Older. Confused. Terrified. My world split open. For a few seconds after hearing that voice, I couldn't speak. I couldn't swallow. I couldn't even breathe. 21 years since the night I watched my son lowered into ground, and yet that voice was unmistakable. Older. Yes, richer, slightly deeper, but still Noah. My Noah. Dad? Please, tell me where I am. He sounded terrified, disoriented, like a child waking from a nightmare, except the nightmare, it seemed, was reality. My throat burned as I tried to respond. Noah? It came out as a cracked whisper. Son? Silence. Then a shaky exhale from the other side of the line. You can hear me, he murmured. I didn't think anyone could hear me. The room was spinning. I pressed a fist against my chest, forcing my lungs to work. Where are you? I asked, but my voice shook so hard it barely resembled speech. Tell me, son, please, what's happening? I don't know, he rasped. I woke up somewhere. It's dark. It's cold. Nothing looks familiar. His breathing quickened. Panicked. Dad, everything feels wrong. I had to stand, to move. I stumbled toward the light switch, flicking it on like that could chase away whatever impossible thing was happening. The house didn't feel real. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. You'll be okay, Elite. I'm here. Just tell me. He cut me off. I remember the crash, he whispered. The headlights. The sound. Then nothing. And now, I don't know who I'm supposed to be. A shiver stabbed through me. He remembered dying. Noah. I said again, desperate now, barely holding myself upright. Tell me where you are. I will come get you. I'm trying to. I can't think straight. His voice dissolved into static for a second, then returned, small and broken. Dad, I don't belong here. Then came the part that shattered me. Please don't leave me again. My knees nearly gave out. I won't, I swore. I'm not going anywhere. Footsteps echoed faintly on his end. He whispered, frightened, Someone's here. I have to. The call cut. Just silence. Cold, unnatural silence. I stared at the screen. Call ended. Duration, 2 minutes, 51 seconds. I called back immediately. A recorded tone. Then, This number is not in service. I dialed again, and again, and again. Same message. Every time. I collapsed onto the floor, shaking, clutching the phone like it was the only thing tethering me to reality. My dead son had just called me, and then vanished back into whatever darkness he came from. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. How could I? I sat in the living room with every light on, gripping my phone like it was life support. The quiet of the house felt wrong, too still, too heavy. Every shadow seemed to breathe. Every creak sounded like footsteps. I replayed the moment over and over. His voice, his fear, his confusion, and that one sentence that kept echoing inside my skull. Please don't leave me again. I'd lost him once. The universe didn't get to take him twice. At dawn, I forced myself outside. The air was sharp, the world gray and half awake. I drove straight to Cedar Ridge Memorial Park before consciousness could convince me I was insane. I needed to see the grave. I parked beside the old maple tree and walked the familiar path through the dew-wet grass. My knees nearly buckled the moment Noah's headstone came into view, solid, real, exactly where I left it every Sunday for 21 years. I stood there, palms pressed the cold polished stone, and whispered, "Where are you, son?" No answer, just the wind hissing through brittle leaves. I sank to my knees. I'd spent 2 decades coming here to talk to him, and last night he had talked back. I should have been terrified. Instead, there was this wild, impossible spark inside me. Hope. By the time I got home, my hands still shaking, I checked my phone again. I half expected the call to be gone, like grief had conjured it as some cruel hallucination. But it was there. Noah Warren, 2:43 a.m. to 2:51. Not a dream. Not a trick memory. Evidence. My fingers trembled as I took screenshots. Then I recorded video of the log, saying the date and time aloud like some desperate investigator documenting proof of the supernatural. When you've lived with grief long enough, sanity becomes flexible. The line between real and impossible thins. I didn't care if I sounded unhinged. He called me. He needed me. And I would walk into hell itself to find him. I stayed glued to that phone all day. Didn't eat. Didn't shower. Every vibration made my heart slam. But no call came. And then, 3 nights later, at 3:11 a.m., the screen lit again. Noah calling. This time I answered on the first vibration, voice cracking with frantic urgency. Noah? Noah, I'm here, talk to me. A breath. Then, Dad, I found an address. My world tilted. Hope ignited into fire. I scrambled upright so fast the blanket tangled around my legs. My voice came out like I'd been running for miles. What address? Say it slowly, son. On the other end, Noah exhaled shakily. Paper rustled as if he'd found a note or was reading a sign. 1327 Hollowbrook Road, Unit 5C, Hawthorne Bend, Ohio. I repeated it back aloud, every syllable etched into my brain like scripture. Hawthorne Bend. I whispered, Ohio. Noah, why are you there? He hesitated. I don't know. Everything feels wrong. I walk around and people just... His breath hitched. They don't see me. Sometimes they walk through me. My grip tightened around the phone, so hard my knuckles cracked. No, listen to me. I said, fighting the panic claw in my throat. You are real. I heard you. This is real. Silence, then a broken whisper. I can't tell what's real anymore. Then his voice changed, like a frightened child trying not to cry. Dad, I look in mirrors and it's me, but older. And I don't remember being older. I don't remember these clothes or this apartment or this body. I'm lost. Every word tore at me. Stay where you are, I said, already grabbing shoes, wallet, keys. Do not move. I'm coming to you. But what if I disappear again? You won't, I said. Not this time. I didn't know if that was a promise I could keep. I made it anyway. What does it look like there? I asked. I needed anything that would make this tangible. A building, he murmured. Old, like it hasn't been alive for a long time. Alive. He didn't say occupied. He said alive. That chilled me. Then footsteps again, soft, distant, and Noah whispered, terrified, "Someone's here. I have to go." "Noah, wait." The line cut. I stared at the screen, jaw clenched, lungs frozen, heartbeat pounding like a hammer in my ribs. I called back instantly. "This number is not in service." Again, again, again. Same message. I didn't stop moving, not even for a second. I shoved clothes into a bag, grabbed a thermos, slammed my front door, and started the car. 8 hours. That's how far Hawthorne Bend was. If I drove straight, I could get there by afternoon. I didn't care if I had to crawl through broken glass with my bare hands. My son was out there, lost between life and something else. And I was going to find him. I don't remember the first hour of that drive. My mind was a storm. Disbelief, terror, hope all colliding so violently I thought my chest might split. It was still dark when I merged onto the highway. The world outside the windshield felt eerie, motionless, like it was holding its breath with me. Streetlights smeared across wet asphalt. My hands gripped the wheels so tight every bone in my fingers ached. 8 hours. 8 hours between me and the only miracle I'd ever been granted in my life. Still, doubts clawed at me. What if this was some cruel prank? What if my grief finally snapped my mind clean in half? What if that voice, that trembling, frightened voice, wasn't real? And yet, I could still hear him. Every syllable, every breath. "Dad." I look in mirrors and it's me, but older. People walk through me. Please don't leave me again. He remembered the accident. He remembered dying. I'd lived 21 years in grief's shadow. I knew the sound of hallucinations. This wasn't that. This was my son, blood of my blood, lost and reaching across the impossible to find me. Somewhere between Pennsylvania and West Virginia, my phone buzzed. I nearly veered off the road grabbing it, only to see a notification from a phone company's automated system. Your additional line has been inactive for 19 months. Not 21 years. 19 months. That stopped my breath. Had I imagined paying the bill? Had someone reinstated that number without me? Or had the system glitched and that number never truly died? I saved the notification, shaking. More proof. Or maybe more mystery. I didn't care which. Proof could wait. My son could not. The miles blurred. Sunrise bled to the clouds behind me, painting the horizon gold. I didn't feel the beauty, only urgency. At a gas station in rural Ohio, I splashed cold water on my face. My reflection in the restroom mirror looked like a man who'd witnessed something sacred and horrifying all at once. I whispered to the glass, "Hold on, Noah. I'm coming." When I got back in the car, my hands wouldn't stop trembling. The GPS voice repeated my next turn like fate itself was guiding me. Hawthorne Bend, 172 miles. And somewhere in that forgotten town, my son was waiting, alive, lost, calling from between worlds. And I would reach him, or die trying. By the time I reached Hawthorne Bend, the sky had turned the color tarnished steel, heavy and low like a storm waiting to break. The town felt suspended in time, the kind of place people left and never mentioned again. Faded storefront signs, empty sidewalks, a clock tower frozen at 11:14, hands rusted in place. My GPS led me through old brick streets until I turned onto Hollow Brook Road, where houses grew sparse and trees leaned in close, skeletal branches scraping the sky. Then I saw it, 1327 Hollow Brook Road, a building so tired it seemed to sag into the earth. For stories. Red brick once, now mottled with mold and peeling paint. Boards nailed across half the windows. A chain link fence wrapped around the lot like a warning. A weather-beaten sign hung loosely from one nail. Condemned city order. No entry. Unsafe structure. My heart pounded. He said this was where he woke up, where he felt invisible, where mirrors showed him older than the boy who died. But this place was dead. Abandoned, like time forgot it. I parked across the street and sat there breathing hard, palms slick with sweat, watching for any sign of life. Nothing moved, not even the trees. But then I noticed something impossible. Amid the boarded windows and shattered glass, one window on the third floor was clean, Curtains drawn neatly, like someone lived there in defiance of the ruin around it. Unit 5C. The number burned in my mind. I didn't think. I just moved, crossed the street, slipped through a tear in the fence. The air smelled of rot and rain, soaked wood. As I got closer, every instinct in my body screamed to turn back. This was wrong ground, a place where reality was thin, a building with bones that remembered grief. But he had been here. Somehow, in some impossible way, my son had stood where I now stood. I reached the side door. The lock hung broken, rusted through. I pushed. The door swung open with a long, low groan that echoed up the stairwell like a warning. Inside was darkness, thick, heavy, silent. But in that silence, I swear I heard something faint. A breath, a whisper, a memory waking up. I stepped inside. The door closed behind me on its own. The air inside the building felt stale, heavy, like I had stepped into a sealed tomb. Dust floated through the beam of my phone's flashlight. The floor creaked beneath every step, groaning as if the structure resented my presence. The hallway stretched forward, lined with doors hanging crooked or missing altogether. Wallpaper peeled like shedding skin. Graffiti sprawled across the walls. Names, symbols, profanity, warnings. A place forgotten, swallowed by time. I climbed the stairs slowly, each footstep echoing unnaturally loud. Something about the silence didn't feel natural. It wasn't the peaceful hush of abandonment. It was a hush that felt aware. By the time I reached the third floor, my heart was slamming against my ribs. My breath fogged in front of me. The air was colder up here, unnaturally so. Frost spidered across a broken window, despite the mild weather outside. Then I saw it, the door to 5C. Unlike the others, it stood untouched, intact, clean. A fresh brass 5C plate gleamed against the wood. The doorknob wasn't rusted. It looked polished, as if someone lived here, as if someone had just stepped out for groceries or to fetch the mail. I reached out a trembling hand and turned the knob. Unlocked. The door swung inward with no sound. And what lay beyond didn't belong in this rotting building or this world. The apartment was perfect. Warm light filtered through curtains. The air smelled like soap and freshly brewed coffee. A gray couch sat against a neatly painted wall. A television. A small bookshelf. A rug that looked vacuumed recently. Patterns still crisp. I whispered without meaning to, "Noah?" The empty apartment held its breath with me. My gaze drifted to the walls, and my spine turned to ice. Photographs, not random stock frames or stage decor. My family. Noah at 7 holding his first baseball glove. Noah at 12 blowing out birthday candles. Claire laughing at a picnic. Me, arm around my son, summer sun behind us. Photos that only existed in albums in my house. And here, displayed in frames as if someone had copied and hung them lovingly. Then my stomach dropped even further. Mixed among them were photos that could not exist. Noah older, beard, subtle smile lines, work clothes. A man in his mid-30s, standing in front of a truck, sitting at a diner, keys in hand, unlocking this apartment door. A life lived, a life I never saw. "Son," I whispered, voice breaking. "What happened to you?" The lights in the apartment flickered. Something moved in the hallway behind me. I wasn't alone. I spun around so fast my flashlight jittered across the doorway, slicing shaky beams into the hallway outside. Nothing. Just shadows. Just silence. But I could feel something. The way you feel a memory before it surfaces, or a presence before it steps into the light. I forced myself to breathe and closed the door behind me. The warm air in the apartment felt almost comforting, like stepping into a nostalgia I didn't own anymore. My fear twisted into grief. My grief into determination. I needed answers. The kitchen sat only a few steps ahead, small, neat, lived in. A lone mug rested beside the sink, still faintly coffee-scented. A dish towel hung on the oven handle with deliberate placement. Someone had been here. Recently. My gaze drifted to the refrigerator. Paper. A torn piece of lined notebook paper pinned with a simple silver magnet. My blood turned cold. I recognized the handwriting before I even reached for it. Messy, slanted letters. The same way Noah used to write spelling homework, rushing so he could get outside and ride his bike. I lifted the note with shaking fingers. Dad, I don't know what's happening. I know I died. I remember it, but I woke up here. Older. Different. Everyone knows me as someone else. They call me Ezra Hayes. They say I've lived here for years. I don't remember any of it. I only remember being Noah. I only remember you. I think I'm trapped between two lives, two selves, and I don't belong in either. If you're reading this, it means you found me. Please don't stop looking. I'm trying to hold on, but I can feel something slipping, like reality keeps shifting, and I'm being pulled out of it. I don't want to disappear again. Not before I see you. Noah, my knees nearly gave out. I clutched the counter to stay upright. There it was. Physical. Real. Proof. Not a hallucination. Not a grief-soaked delusion. My son had been alive. Lost. Fighting to stay tethered. I pressed the note to my chest and whispered, I'm here, son. I'm here. A floorboard creaked behind me. Slow. Heavy. Deliberate. I wasn't supposed to be here. And whoever, or whatever, was inside this nightmare with me just realized I had crossed the threshold. I turned slowly, pulse hammering so violently I could hear it in my ears. The apartment behind me was still, too still. Every instinct screamed to run, yet my feet wouldn't move. The hallway was empty. No footsteps. No breathing. Just the hum of a refrigerator that shouldn't have been running in a condemned building. I forced a swallow and stepped toward the small bedroom door. It sat slightly ajar, warm light spilling out across the carpet. I pushed it open. The world tilted. Inside were clothes hanging neatly in a closet, flannels, work shirts, jeans, all far too modern, far too current for someone who supposedly died in 2004. On the dresser sat a worn leather wallet, a watch, and a set of keys with a Hawthorne Bend gym tag. A life lived without me. I opened the wallet. A driver's license slid free. Ezra Jacob Hayes. Age, 35. Address, 1327 Hollow Brook Road, Unit 5C. Issue date, 2019. But the face staring back from the ID. Older. Beard. Same scar above the eyebrow. He got falling off a skateboard at 13. Eyes the exact shade of autumn hazel I'd memorized on his first day of kindergarten. Features matured, not replaced. My son's face. Older. Alive. Someone else's name. My hand shook violently. I braced myself on the dresser and spotted framed photos beside the lamp. Not the childhood ones. These were new. Noah Ezra, standing outside this very building, holding takeout bags, keys in his hand, laughing with co-workers outside what looked like a warehouse, sitting at a bar, arm around a friend. Ordinary moments, ordinary life. 21 years stolen from me, lived in secret by a boy who should have been ashes, not flesh. And then my breath stopped. A photo of him sitting on a hospital bed. Bandages. For wrist tag. The date printed on the frame. October 2004. The same week he died. Except in this image he didn't die. He woke up here. Or somewhere that led here. Another name. Another history. Another timeline carved clean over his existence like fate trying to overwrite him. I whispered, my God, all this time. A sudden bang jolted through the apartment. The front door slamming shut. I froze. Not drifted. Not creaked. Slamming. Someone had just entered. Dad. The voice came from the living room. And it was his. Older. Rougher. Trembling with fear and something like hope. Are you here? My heart shattered open. My son had come home from a life he never should have lived, and he didn't know who he was walking toward. My legs refused to move. For 21 years I imagined hearing his voice again, in dreams and memories, in the echo of empty rooms. But hearing it now, in flesh and bone reality, froze me to the floor. Dad! The voice drifted down the hallway again. Closer this time. Older. Weather-worn. But his. I would have known it anywhere. I stepped out of the bedroom like a man sleepwalking through a miracle. My mouth worked before my mind caught up. Noah! He stood in the living room, framed by the open door. For a heartbeat, neither of us breathed. He was taller than I remembered, broad-shouldered, dark hair with a few silver threads at the temples, beard trimmed neatly, same jawline, same eyes, those warm hazel eyes that once beamed up at me from Little League fields and birthday candles. And yet, the fear in them now belonged to a man haunted by worlds he could not fit into. His hand gripped the doorframe like he needed it to stay upright. I know you, he whispered. I tried to speak. My throat locked. Tears blurred everything. I choked on the word. You're my son. A tremor rippled through him. Not recognition, not yet, but something deeper. A pulse of familiarity under skin altered by time. He took one shaky breath, then another. I keep hearing that, he murmured. In dreams, in flashes, like a life trying to break through a wall. He leaned forward, searching my face, brow furrowed like the truth sat just beyond grasp. What's my name? He asked. My voice cracked. Noah James Warren. He squeezed his eyes shut like the name caused pain. Or memory. I've heard that name, he whispered. Inside my head, like an echo from somewhere I've never been. He pressed a palm to his chest. I don't remember being him, but I feel him. He looked at me again, truly looked, and something flickered in his expression. Shock, fear, recognition in the bones. You're the man for my dreams, he breathed. You stand at a grave. You say my name. And I feel like I'm being pulled away from somewhere I don't belong. My knees nearly buckled. I lifted a trembling hand. Noah. He flinched, not from fear, but from emotion too heavy to bear. Then, barely audible, Dad. And before I could answer, the lights flickered. A shudder moved through the building, as if reality itself strained to contain what was happening. The clock above the stove blinked. Then every sound died. We were no longer alone in that place. The light overhead sputtered again. One sharp flicker, then a low hum that vibrated in my teeth. Noah's, Ezra's, eyes darted upward, jaw tightening. You feel that too? He whispered. Yes. My voice was barely sound. My knees were shaking, but not from fear, from wonder, grief, and a terror deeper than anything I'd ever known. The apartment suddenly felt smaller, not claustrophobic, compressed like walls, air. Time itself were narrowing, tightening, vibrating around us. Noah pressed his palms to his temples with a pained wince. It's happening again. What is? I moved closer, cautiously, like approaching a wounded animal or a miracle afraid to be touched. His breath came fast. Not panic, overload. Sometimes, he gasped, I feel like I'm being pulled, stretched, between two places at once. I see this life, here, and then suddenly I'm somewhere else. Younger, standing in a kitchen that smells like cinnamon. There's a dog barking and someone's calling my name. His voice cracked. Noah, not Ezra. Noah. I swallowed hard. That was home. Your home. Our dog, Timber. His eyes flooded. Confusion. Recognition. Pain. I don't understand, he whispered. Why do I remember a life I never lived? You did live it, I said gently. Until I died. He finished the sentence like pulling a blade from his own chest. Then, quieter. But if I died, then what is this? Who am I now? His voice trembled, not from fear, but from a soul cracking open. I look at my hands, and they feel borrowed, he whispered. I go to work, and everyone greets me like they've known me for years. And I smile. I play along. But inside I'm screaming because none of it feels real. He looked at me like a child lost in a crowded station. Dad, am I even alive? I reached out, slow, deliberate. No instinct. No panic. Just love. He didn't flinch this time. My hand touched his shoulder. Warm. Solid. Real. You are here, I said. And that means you are real. His breath shuddered. His hand lifted to cover mine. Then a distant sound echoed down the hallway. A door. A footstep. Something moving inside the building. A voice, whisper thin, not Noah's, slid through the silence. He doesn't belong here. We froze. The air grew colder. The walls seemed to inhale. Whatever had followed him through death, through memory, through whatever doorway he crossed. It had found us. The voice wasn't loud. It wasn't human, either, but it spoke. A whisper threaded with static, like language dragged through a broken radio. He doesn't belong here. Noah's fingers tightened on my wrist. His breathing grew ragged, not fear alone, but recognition, like he'd heard that voice before. I turned toward the apartment door. The hallway beyond lay dark and still, yet every hair on my arm stood upright. The silence wasn't empty. It was watching. I whispered, "Who's there?" No answer, only the low buzz of the lights and the deep hum of something unseen pressing against the walls. Noah swallowed hard. It always comes when I remember too much. What does? He shook his head, eyes wide. I don't know. A shadow. Pulling. Like something trying to drag me back. His voice broke. Or erase me. I stepped in front of him without thinking. The instinct of a father. You're not going anywhere. The shadows in the hallway shifted. Not like someone walking, but like gravity itself bent for a moment, as if reality rippled around something trying to form. The whisper came again, closer this time, brushing against the inside of my skull. He crossed. He was not meant to. He must return. Noah clutched his head. This place, this life. Maybe it wasn't real at first. Maybe I wasn't supposed to wake up here. But I did. I lived here. I became someone. Doesn't that mean something? The air felt thick, heavy, suffocating, as though the building exhaled cold onto our skin. I stepped back toward him, gripping his shoulders. Noah, listen to me. You are not a mistake. You are not a glitch. You lived. You changed. You exist. You matter. His voice was barely a whisper. What if I'm not supposed to? What if this world is trying to correct itself? A cold wind, impossible inside a sealed apartment, swept through, rattling the photos on the wall. The overhead light flickered violently. A low rumble rolled through floorboards. Then, suddenly, everything stopped. Silence. Stillness. Noah exhaled, shaking. And then, like nothing had happened at all, the fridge hummed again. The clock blinked back to life. The apartment warmed. But something had changed. Some invisible boundary had been crossed. Noah looked at me, eyes haunted. What if I'm not meant to be in either world now? The question cut deeper than any ghost or darkness could, because for the first time since he called, I didn't know the answer. The quiet that followed wasn't peace. It felt like the world holding its breath, waiting to see what we'd do next. Noah stood there trembling, chest rising and falling too fast, skin pale like someone trying to hold on to the last thread keeping him anchored. Then, suddenly, his eyes glazed over, not like losing consciousness, but like being pulled backward inside his own mind. Noah! I grabbed his shoulders gently. Talk to me. His pupils dilated. His breath hitched. I see. He staggered, grabbing the back of the couch like the floor had tilted under him. I'm in a car. His voice was distant, hollow. It's raining. Headlights coming at me. Too fast. I can't move the wheel. Mom is screaming my name. He choked, doubling forward, a sound of panic tearing from his throat. I held him, firm but careful. You're safe. You're here with me. He shook his head violently. No, I feel it. The world ripping. A sound like metal and wind and... He gasped like he'd just been punched in the chest, eyes wide with terror. Then I woke up. He stared straight ahead, not at me, not at the room, but at memory. In a hospital, not ours. White walls, strange voices. I tried to say my name, but it came out wrong. Ezra. They told me I was Ezra. His voice cracked. I tried to tell them I wasn't, that my name was Noah, that I had a family. They looked at me like I was broken. They called a doctor. They said I hit my head in the fall. His hands trembled violently now. They didn't know who Noah was. And eventually neither did I. I felt the world tilt beneath us. He lifted his eyes to mine, hollow, pleading. I didn't forget you because I wanted to. A tear slipped down his cheek. I forgot because something wouldn't let me remember. I wiped his face like he was 5 again, scraped knee, scared tears, tiny fists. You found your way back. I whispered. That means you were never gone. His lip trembled. I don't know where I belong. I died there. I lived here. If I'm not real in either place. I pressed my hands to his face. You are real because I love you. That's enough. Another whisper slid through the room. Colder this time, sharper. Love does not anchor the dead. The lights dimmed. Noah's fingers dug into my arms, panic flaring again. Dad, I think something's coming back for me. And this time I felt it too. Not grief, not imagination. Something real, something ancient, something that believed he wasn't finished dying. The air thickened, not just cold this time, but pressurized, like standing at the bottom of deep water. My ears rang. My skin prickled. The apartment seemed to lean inward, walls breathing slow and heavy. Noah's voice broke into a whisper. It's close. A shadow slid past the frosted glass of the apartment door. Not walking, gliding, like darkness moving with intention. A slow scrape followed. Something dragging lightly along the hallway floor outside. Then tap, 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 fingernails, bones, gently testing the doorframe, as if curious. My hand instinctively moved between Noah and the sound. The doorknob shuddered, not rattled, shuddered, like metal vibrating under a frequency not meant for this world. Noah clutched his head like invisible hands were gripping it. It's trying to pull me back. Pull him back where? Then came the voice. Not like before, no whisper, no static. This time it spoke like a thing learning human language, one syllable at a time. He crossed. He must return. The door eased open a fraction of an inch. Not pushed, reluctantly allowed. I didn't breathe. Neither did he. A shape gathered in the doorway, not fully formed, like ink spilled into air, trying to decide what body to wear. Tall, thin, off balance, as if gravity struggled to agree where it belonged. It tilted its head, an unnatural, too far tilt, examining us. Dad, Noah gasped. Don't let go of me. I grabbed his arm. The thing took one step in. The temperature plummeted. Frost bloomed across the photos on the wall, over our childhood memories like winter claiming graves. He does not belong in life. Every instinct screamed to run, but there was nowhere to go. And I knew, with terrible clarity, this wasn't a ghost, not a memory, not some lost spirit. This was the border itself, the boundary that separated life from death, and it had come to correct a mistake. Noah squeezed my hand so tight I felt bones shift. I don't want to go again, he whispered. I didn't ask to come back, but I don't want to disappear. The shadow stretched an arm, wrong, elastic, trembling, reaching for him. No voice this time, just inevitability. I stepped forward, heart pounding, every cell screaming, and spoke the only truth I knew. You can't take him. Not again. The shadow paused, as if surprised that I dared speak. Noah stared at me, wide-eyed, hope and terror tangled in equal measure. The thing leaned closer, and the entire apartment shivered like reality itself, was deciding which one of us it would break first. The moment stretched razor thin, quiet enough to hear dust settling. The entity, whatever law of existence it represented, hovered in the threshold like it was tasting the air, measuring us, deciding fate with no emotion, no cruelty, no mercy. Just order. A voice, not sound but pressure, pressed into my skull. He crossed death. He is an error. I didn't back away. I didn't flinch. I had buried my son once. I would not let the universe steal him twice. He isn't an error, I said, jaw trembling but voice steady. He's my child. The shadow rippled, like wind through smoke. All things return. Noah's grip tightened. Dad. I didn't let go. Not this time. Not ever again. You took him already, I whispered, voice cracking. You had your turn. He had a life. He died. and I mourned him. I gave up everything to keep breathing without him. My chest heaved. Tears burned hot. And somehow, by some miracle, he found his way back. That means he belongs here. The thing leaned in not by moving, but by becoming closer. The lights dimmed to nothing but a dull glow. Then, unexpectedly, it spoke in tone instead of certainty. Belonging is not life. A crack tore through me. I don't care what he belongs to, I said. I care who loves him. And he is loved here. Noah's voice broke. Dad, you don't have to. You are not going anywhere, I said fiercely. You clawed back from oblivion to be here. That means something. Silence. Heavy. Charged. The entity's shape pulsed. A tremor of conflict or calculation. One life cannot hold two truths. Noah staggered, clutching his chest. It's pulling me. Two realities, they're ripping. I caught him, held him upright. Then choose this one. Choose me. He looked at me, and in his eyes I saw both boys at once. The son I buried, and the man who lived a life without me. A tear slid down his cheek. I choose you, he whispered. Time froze. Breath stopped. The universe shuddered like glass under strain. The entity flickered, a glitch in existence, destabilizing, fracturing around a choice it didn't anticipate. Then, a roaring sound, like wind inside bone. Reality warped, and suddenly, light exploded outward, like decision, like birth, like a soul refused to vanish quietly. The world didn't break. It split. It didn't feel like an explosion. It felt like unraveling. The apartment dissolved, not broken, but peeled away, like paint curling off wood. The walls stretched upward, bending and bending until they warped into a horizon, then tore like fabric pulled too tight. Color drained. Sound thinned. Gravity staggered. For one impossible heartbeat, I wasn't in a room. I was standing between two realities, hanging side by side like mirror glass. On my left, a hospital room. Machines. Pale sunlight. A man, older Noah, Ezra, lie in a bed, nurses rushing toward him. A doctor shouting orders. A woman crying at the door. Someone from his other life. On my right, a rainy road at night. A wrecked car. Flashing ambulance lights. My younger Noah being pulled from twisted metal, lifeless. Paramedics shouting for paddles that wouldn't work. My wife screaming his name. Sirens wailing into the night. Two fates. Two timelines. One soul trapped between the fall and the awakening. And in the middle, here we were. Noah gasped, body jerking like gravity, didn't know which world to claim him. His hand clutched mine with desperate, breaking strength. I'm being pulled back, he choked. To both. To die again or to wake alone. No, I said. It came out raw. You choose here. With me. His voice shook with terror. What if choosing means breaking everything? What if I was supposed to disappear? I already buried you once, I said. I will not watch the world take you again. The rip in reality wavered. The entity flickered in the air between worlds, no longer a dark shape, but a crack in existence itself. A tear in the concept of what should be. A life cannot cheat its path, it said. Balance must return. My voice rose, fierce and shaking. Then balance me. Take years from my life. Take whatever cosmic number you need, but leave him in this world. The entity paused. Time held its breath. Noah stared at me, disbelief flooding his face, grief and hope tangled like thorns in prayer. Dad, don't. I squeezed his hand tighter. I would die 100 times before I lose you again. A single word slipped from him. Quiet, shaking, a child's voice in a man's body. Why? Because, I whispered, a father's love is a law stronger than death. The worlds flickered. The entities seemed to listen. And then the tearing sound began to fold inward, like the universe was about to decide the cost of love. The sound was like the earth inhaling, then holding its breath, waiting to see who would break first. The fracture between worlds narrowed, trembling like a string drawn too tight. The entity hovered there, not a person, not a spirit, but a rule made visible. A life must equal a life, it said. My blood turned to ice. Noah looked at me, panic crashing across his face. No, Dad, no. That means you. I held his shoulders. Firm, steady, like when he was young, and I'd kneel to calm him after nightmares. If it takes me instead, I whispered, then so be it. He shook his head violently. You can't. I can't lose you. Not again. You already did, I said softly. Once. And I lived every day after as a ghost. The world stole you. If taking me gives you back a life. He cut me off, voice ragged. I don't want a life if it costs yours. Something in the universe hesitated, as if shocked by defiance from a soul that wasn't supposed to exist. Then the entity's voice came again, colder, ancient, exact. One soul out of place. One soul must leave. Noah's grip on me tightened. His voice dropped to a pleading whisper. Dad, run. As if I ever would. His chest heaved. Tears burned hot in his eyes. He wasn't just remembering now. He was choosing. I won't let them take you from me. You don't get to decide that, I said gently. He did something that I never expected. Something that shattered me more than his death ever could. He stepped between me and the entity, arms out, guarding me the way I had always guarded him. If a life has to pay, he said, voice steady despite the tremor in it, take mine, the part of me that died, the part that doesn't belong. The room quaked. The fracture brightened, white, blinding, searing like lightning inside bone. The hospital world flickered. The crash site fractaled apart. Two existences pulled like magnets in opposite directions. Noah's voice cracked as he forced the words. I lived twice. He only lived once. Let me be the one. Noah, I choked, grabbing for him. He turned, and in his eyes I saw peace. Real peace. Dad, thank you for coming for me. Then, soft as breath, fierce as destiny. I choose. The universe held still, and everything went white. White, not light. Absence. Soundless, formless, weightless, like standing inside the pause between heartbeats. Then, slowly, the world bled back. A ceiling came first. Peeling paint. Water stains like bruises on plaster. The apartment. I was lying on the floor, my breath shallow, my chest aching like someone had reached inside and wrung my heart out. My ears rang. Silence pressed hard, not peaceful, not empty, but hollow, like something had been carved out of reality and hadn't healed yet. I sat up. The room was exactly as it had been, except no footstep prints, no frost on the walls, no flicker of lights, just dust, stillness. A stale quiet that didn't belong to the living. I swallowed, throat burning. Noah. No answer. I forced myself to stand. My legs shook. My body felt heavier, not older exactly, but drained, as if time had skimmed something off me on its way past. The photos on the wall were gone. Not fallen. Gone. The frame sat empty, glass still intact, but every picture inside them had vanished like memory evaporating from a faded dream. I staggered to the kitchen. The note, the one he wrote, remained on the fridge, but the handwriting was gone. A blank sheet of lined paper hung limply under the silver magnet. I closed my eyes. A soundless ache poured through me. Reality had chosen, or corrected, or erased. The fridge hummed. The clock ticked. The world pretended nothing had happened. I backed into the living room and looked at the front door, shut neatly, calmly, like no force had ever pushed through it, like no life had stood there shaking with fear and recognition. For a moment, just a moment, I felt a warmth near me, a presence without shape, a whisper without sound, not a voice, not a word, just knowing, and it filled me like a quiet flame. He chose to stay. Maybe not here. Maybe not in the life I knew, but somewhere, some sliver of existence, my son lived. Not torn between worlds. Not lost. Whole. And he had chosen it. A tear slid down my face. I whispered into the empty room. Thank you. Then I turned and walked out of the apartment for the last time. Behind me, the door eased shut with a soft click, like a story ending gently, refusing to slam. I don't remember leaving the building. One second I was inside that impossible room. The next I was standing outside in the gray morning light, cold air stinging my face. The condemned structure loomed behind me, silent, crumbling, ordinary now, so heartbreakingly ordinary, as if nothing sacred had ever trembled inside it. I stood there for a long time, staring at peeling brick and boarded windows, trying to catch my breath in a world that felt unfamiliar again. Not because it had changed, but because I had. Somewhere my son existed. Somewhere he breathed, chose, continued. But not here. Not with me. And yet, somehow, that hurt less than burying him ever did. Because this time he wasn't gone. Just beyond my reach. I walked to my car like a man moving through snow. Slow, numb, aware of every breath. When I opened the door, a scrap of paper on the passenger seat caught my eye. A parking ticket from 18 hours earlier. Proof time had marched forward while eternity unfolded in a condemned hallway. I sat down, closed the door. The sudden quiet inside the car felt too loud. I placed both hands on the steering wheel and waited until my breathing steadied. For a moment, I expected the phone to ring again. That familiar tone, that trembling voice. "Dad, I'm here." It didn't. The drive back was long, and the world outside the windows didn't look real at first. Trees blurred into watercolor shapes. Gas stations, road signs, fields, all background noise of the hollow ache and quiet wonder inside me. At a rest stop, I sat in the car and looked at my phone. Call log empty. As if the world agreed we needed to forget. But I hadn't. I whispered into the still air. "Wherever you are, I hope it's warm." People hurried past carrying coffees and luggage and everyday worries, unaware that just hours ago I had stood at the seam of existence and bargained with fate. By the time I reached home, night had fallen. The porch light flicked on automatically, bathing the yard in soft gold. For the first time in years, it didn't feel like a light left on for someone who would never return. I stepped inside, hummed my keys, and sat at the kitchen table. Beside the fruit bowl sat a framed photo. Noah at 10, front tooth missing, laughing at something I couldn't remember anymore. I didn't break this time. I just closed my eyes and whispered, "I got to see the man you became." And for the first time in 2 decades, I wasn't haunted by the boy I lost. I was at peace with the man he chose to be. I didn't sleep that night. Not out of fear. Not anymore. But because peace is unfamiliar when you've lived beside grief for so long. I sat in the living room with a blanket wrapped around me, the same way I had after that first impossible phone call. Except this time, I wasn't waiting for the phone to ring. I just listened to the hum of the refrigerator, to the whisper of wind against the window, to the quiet heartbeat of a world that no longer felt like an enemy. At 3:11 a.m., the same time he had first called, the house shifted, not loudly, just a subtle change in the air, like someone had opened a door in another room. I didn't turn my head. I knew. A warmth brushed past me, gentle, weightless, familiar in a way that shattered and mended me all at once. No sound, no voice, just presence. The way a mother knows the way of her child before she ever lifts them. The way a father knows the shape of his son's laughter in a crowded room. It rested near me, like a head on my shoulder that wasn't there. For a moment, I felt him. Not flesh, not memory. Him, older, new, whole, and somewhere safe. And in that soft, impossible stillness, I heard, not with ears, but with whatever part of the soul listens after words end. "Thank you for finding me." I didn't speak. I didn't move. I just let myself feel it. The pride, the ache. The goodbye that wasn't grief but gratitude. Eventually, the warmth faded. Not like leaving, like continuing. The moment passed. The house settled. And life, quiet, steady, ordinary life, remained. I rose at dawn, brewed coffee, and stepped outside. A light mist coated the grass. Birds stirred. The world exhaled. Behind me, the door clicked shut. Ahead of me, a day waited, simple and unremarkable in every way except one. I was not waiting anymore. Somewhere, my son walked his path, not lost, not torn, not belonging to death or to me, but to himself. That was enough. More than enough. I whispered into morning. Wherever you are, live well. A breeze stirred the leaves. Not answer, not echo, just movement. Life moving forward. And I smiled, because miracles don't always return what we lost. Sometimes they give us the strength to let go and the grace to believe our love still reaches them anyway.